What you're looking at is the aftermath of the storms that ripped through Winfield Thursday night.
They're hot, they're heavy, and these suits are not for everyone.
Crews have been working nonstop since Sunday to get the field ready for Thursday night's game. How do you compare that to, say, 30 years ago? Well, we took a look.
I have to say, you guys were the talk of the town this weekend. I've got friends of friends that were talking about how you guys just didn't care when, along with the launch, without the approval, and people were actually commending that.
A woman shot in the leg in Tower Grove speaks only with ABC 30, questioning why the suspect with a criminal history was walking around in the first place. This $380 million project is on schedule.
That the organization has yet to receive any documents they need to secure or send.
If my microphone picked up on my camera, you probably would hear how fast my heart was pounding because everything happened so fast. And
that study was conducted only after the ordinance was passed. Why wasn't that study done prior to that?
Take a look at these numbers. From 1999 to 2003, more than 1,500 St. Louis City children younger than 6 were poisoned by lead each year.
We sent you to North St. Louis, where there was a police-involved shooting, and that turned a little dicey for you, huh?
More than what I had anticipated, Jamie. I was met with a lot of hostility as I walked up to the scene of the police shooting. A woman you'll see in my video even yelled obscenities at me.
Say that one more time for me. Really? This is on camera.
So?
I'm rolling on this. I'm rolling on this. You better watch what you're saying.
I can call you a
You're on a public road. You can call whatever you call.
Yes, exactly.
Ann Coulter making a big sting after a text of Pope Francis' address at the White House this morning was released. Ann Coulter tweeted this in response. Equally accurate statement to the Pope. The Catholic Church was largely built by pedophiles. Keeping it classy, Ann.
So during that time is when Jeff Warda of the St. Louis Police Officer Association is heard from the back of the room asking the chairman to call for order.
Mr. Master.
Come on, Mr. Chairman, how about some order here, huh?
So after this whole thing went down, I ran over to Alderman Antonio French to get his take on how things quickly got so heated.
I think what it reflects is that tempers are still high and that we still have a lot of divisions in our community. And I think what you saw tonight was yet another indication of just how serious the divisions are in our city.
Clearly, this isn't over as far as the Citizens Oversight Committee debate is concerned, Jamie. This is still a topic that's continuing to linger in the air, so it's going to come back.
Well, it's great there wasn't more violence, but I guess it pays to have a lot of police on hand.
Right?
No doubt about it.
I feel like they kind of outnumber the crowd there. So.
Indeed. All right, Ayesha Khan, thank you very much.
Holly Dobbs of St. Louis never thought a simple hello to a stranger on a late September evening would result in her being robbed and shot on Arsenal Street in broad daylight.
Just being friendly. It kind of went from shock to disbelief very quickly.
2 months later, the mother of a 6-year-old still has a difficult time walking.
They removed bullet fragments and put plates and screws in.
Police say 31-year-old Christopher Sheed of St. Louis is the man who shot her. According to court records, Sheed had pleaded guilty to 2 previous gun crimes and had been released from jail just 5 weeks earlier after.
And in that 5 weeks, I could have very easily lost my life.
Dobbs says while she's angry at what happened to her, she is more upset about the fact that a man with a criminal history was roaming the streets.
I know that being a judge is difficult, and I know that being a lawyer is difficult, and that you guys see this all the time, so it's very easy for you to say, what's one more? But what's one more is someone's mother.
Dobbs believes the legal system shouldn't just throw people who do bad things in jail. She says maybe her ordeal could raise awareness that these people need more than just jail time.
They should also be getting therapy. The shock time of jail isn't working. It's not working for most people, and that's why we have so much recidivism. You have a responsibility to keep these people behind bars, and you should not, for any reason, let them out.
Holly's case goes to the grand jury in December. Sheed, meanwhile, is sentenced to 8 years in prison on the original charges. For the Almond Report, I'm Ayesha Khan. Melvin Richmond has lived in this St. Louis City home for 25 years.
It's quite old, but I love it.
That house was built back in 1886, and as much as he loves his historic home, the grandfather was concerned the crumbling lead paint was putting his grandchildren's health at risk.
I painted over a lot of it, tried to seal it up.
But that wasn't enough.
A lot of the effects of lead I didn't know. I knew it was bad for you, but then after I began to do research on it, I found that it was very, very bad, more serious than I thought.
Serious enough that the city's lead inspection team stepped in.
Well, on this specific house, they did an inspection and there were approximately 85 violations on this house. So on this house, what you're looking for, here's a classic example where you have the lead-based paint, which is flaking and peeling on here. And this is what kids like to get in contact with because the lead-based paint, these chips are supposed to be sweet to the kids.
But behind that sweet taste is a bitter reality.
Some of the symptoms that you'll see, there will be learning disabilities. There could be hearing loss, it could be attention deficit disorder, behavior problems, lack of attention, lack of focus, and lack of impulse control too.
The city's Department of Health says it's quite common to find lead-based paint in homes that were built before 1978. But in the last 12 years, with the implementation of a lead detection program, more and more families are getting the help that could prevent kids from getting seriously ill.
There might be apprehension about that because if I live in a rental unit and this is all that I can afford, maybe my landlord won't view that very well. And maybe I'll get put out of my house.
The city credits continuing education and awareness for helping to take care of the problem for now, but there is still some work to do. Last year, we inspected over 450 homes. 300 of them were in violation. The only way that you can make the homes, completely lead-free is to remove the material, but here you can't do that. It's not cost effective. And while Melvin doesn't mind being out of his house for a few days as the city helps take care of the problem, there's only one thing on his mind.
It's the safety of the grandkids, so it's worth it.
You've probably driven past this enormous structure, and when you get up close, it's hard not to admire the details carved so intricately on the 100-year-old building. Unfortunately, Cleveland High School has not been a school for 9 years.
A bit of a big bite to take for a developer because it's over 200,000 square feet.
Walker Gaffney with the St. Louis City School District says the school, along with 24 other ones, is left vacant because there are fewer kids. Enrollment started dropping in 1970.
The demographics led the students from this school to be moved to other schools where they could be operated more efficiently.
The sign on the Shepherd School reads, "No school Monday and Friday," but school hasn't been in session since 2009. And the Clark School, once inside, listen. No sounds of learning. The last student walked out 6 years ago.
But there's no benefit to the district to hold on to buildings that deteriorate rapidly once they're closed and cause problems for the neighborhood.
So why not put them back to good use? Well, that's the question Douglas Thaman of the Missouri Charter Public Schools Association is asking.
Charter school groups that have approached the district for purchase or use of a vacant building for a number of years, and not many have had great success.
Thaman says enrollment demand has never been higher. He says families are returning to St. Louis and are appreciating the opportunity of having a charter school as a public choice. But he says charter schools don't have the financial resources needed to pay market value for an old building.
Why should a charter school use its public dollars to buy a public building that's already been paid for by the public? It's almost like buying your home twice.
We asked Gaffney about that. He says the district hasn't sold any vacant buildings to charter schools, but prefers to negotiate deals like the one that allowed KIPP to use the Mitchell Elementary School building for free. The city has no control over these buildings because they are owned by the city school district. The only thing the city itself can do is to maintain them, meaning cut the grass, patch up roofs, or fix downspouts. But can you guess who pays for it all?
That all falls on taxpayers. That is something that the public schools have had to take on, and it really hurts our ability to invest in the schools that are functioning, that do have students coming to them every day, and it's millions of dollars a year.
Powers says clearly the longer these buildings sit idle, the more money it's going to take to bring them up to code. But he adds the school district, compared to past years, is more than ready now to find new owners for what are referred to as architectural gems. In these pictures, Rachel Griswold looks happy and full of life. But her mother, Holly Reeder, says it wasn't long before that smile slowly diminished.
At 17, senior in high school, working many hours a week at a local restaurant, she cut her thumb open. So they sent her to the emergency room. She got it stitched up, and they gave her a prescription of Loracets.
The mom of 3 says that's when things took a turn for the worse. Her child was now buying pills from people who doctor shopped.
You run out of money. And so at that point, you know, meth, heroin, where those are kind of the boogeyman to kids. Once you get addicted to these painkillers, it's not so scary anymore, and it's a less expensive drug.
And they bring them and they throw them.
Holly is now a state representative and determined to make changes, even if that meant airing dirty laundry. She's backing a proposed prescription drug monitoring bill.
This bill would do is it would allow pharmacists to have a red light, green light, yellow light type mechanism coming in through them. So when they put this prescription in and it goes to the insurance company, encrypted to the insurance company, it would also go to the department, and that would come back and just flag it if this is someone who has filled a prescription.
While making the bill a law would mean the world to Holly,
I only need 3.
Mary Schmicken says it could make her job a little easier. She owns a pharmacy.
It verifies that I have the right drug.
A lot of times she's just using instinct, trying to figure out if a customer really needs medication.
The drug-seeking behavior, where was the prescription from? I'm in Afton. If somebody's traveling from High Ridge to get to me in Afton and their doctor's in St. Peter's, I think that they're going a long way.
Missouri is the only state that doesn't have a monitoring system, but Carl Bearden with United for Missouri says if the bill does pass, it would violate medical privacy rights.
What we have is a very small portion of our population who unfortunately abuse prescription drugs. And the rest of us are going to be penalized by having our data centralized into a central database in the state that's subject to hacking, it's subject to being shared by the state.
Bearden says there are several states that have PDMP in place, but the problem has not gone away. Kaylee Boutwell is a pain management specialist. She says that's not true. She says she knows because she's practiced in states with the program.
I was made aware by virtue of the monitoring program that they were seeing other physicians. They were getting medications that I was unaware of and endangering themselves.
We took a look at states next to Missouri to see how they rank with PDMP. According to Kansas Health Institute, less than 1 per 10,000 Kansans died of overdoses in 2010. And according to Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, it recorded declines in drug-related overdoses for the first time in 10 years, from 807 in 2011 to 578 in 2012. In 2002, the Government Accounting Office reported the average times investigations of doctor shoppers in Kentucky dropped from 156 days to 16 days after implementation. Meanwhile, Holly says Rachel, now 29, has been clean for 9 months. She hopes that progress continues while keeping fingers crossed that the bill goes through.
This is not a silver bullet. We need to change the face of addiction.